A contract doesn't change a man's character. It just makes his intentions legal. Think about that for a second, my friend. I'm hitting you with that right out of the gate, so you understand exactly what level we're operating at here. School taught you to read the fine print. They trained you to hunt down the footnotes, to check for legal alignment, to make sure everything looked balanced and fair on paper. They told you that if it's signed and notarized, you're protected. That's exactly why you keep getting played in the real world. You were conditioned to trust the ink, when you should have been trained to read the man. The modern financial education system and the stage gurus out there are laser-focused on blind optimism. They tell you, sign here, focus on the profit split, and we'll all get rich together. That is the most dangerous lie ever told to your generation. Because the real world, the world where serious money actually changes hands, has zero mercy for the naive. The Talmud doesn't celebrate the partnership, it audits the disaster, and once you understand that, everything changes. While you're sitting at that conference table, sweating through your shirt on the inside, reading the clause about dividend distribution, the other side isn't reading the contract, they're reading you. They're mapping your anxiety. They're measuring how fast you breathe when the investment figure gets mentioned. They're not worried about legal rules, because legal rules were built to get dragged through courtrooms for decades. They're playing an invisible game you don't even know the rules to. I'm not here to stroke your ego. I'm not here to give you motivational tips on how to attract wealth. I'm here to hand you the unforgiving compass of old money, the kind of money that survived empires, world wars, economic collapses, and pandemics. The families that control that kind of money don't stare at the paper. In the 3 seconds before the pen hits the document, they apply a principle that's been documented for thousands of years. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the laws your attorney just reviewed. If you've got the stomach for the raw truth, if you're tired of being the prey at the negotiating table, stay with me. Because what I'm about to share with you is not taught at Harvard. It's taught in silence, passed from father to son, across generations. Still here? Good. Then pay very close attention. The document in your hands is just a formality for ordinary men. For the men who actually control markets, the real transaction happens in a fraction of time that's almost imperceptible. It's a window where human truth reveals itself completely naked, with no disguise. In the ancient texts of the Talmud, a brutally honest compendium on human nature, ethics, and financial survival, there is an understanding that the signature is irrelevant if the intention was corrupt from the start. The modern system wants you to believe that the law protects the righteous. Ancient Jewish wisdom operates on the opposite assumption. Presume the worst-case scenario before you hand over a single dollar or a single minute of your time to another human being. Those 3 seconds of absolute silence before you commit to anything carry the full weight of your financial future. It's not a dramatic pause. It's a psychological scanner. It's the moment where you shut off your emotions. You kill the urge to close the deal fast, and you enter pure survival mode. Your mind cannot be on the profit that's coming. Your mind has to be locked onto the ruin that's possible. It's the mathematics of risk versus the greed of the moment. The Talmud, compiled by minds that had to survive exile, persecution, and markets where local laws never favored them, sees the world in a far colder and more realistic way. For the ancient sages, the signature itself does not create the agreement. The paper has zero value without what they called Gemirut Da'at. The literal translation of Gemirut Da'at is the completion of the mind, absolute mental resolution. Without it, a contract, even if it's signed, stamped, and validated by 10 judges, is considered void under deep Jewish law. Why does that matter to you, sitting in an office today? Because the current system trains you to negotiate out of euphoria and excitement. But the families that build generational wealth operate from the mapping of intention. Ancient Jewish merchants traveled continents, from the Silk Road to medieval Europe. They had no international police force to enforce their contracts. They couldn't trust local courts. The only guarantee they had was their ability to read the soul of the man sitting across the table. This is where a dangerous principle the Talmud calls asmakta comes in. An asmakta is a promise made on the basis of exaggerated hope. It's when the other party agrees to an enormous penalty or an unrealistic guarantee, simply because they are absolutely certain everything is going to work out and they'll never have to pay up. The ordinary man sees the other side agreeing to any condition and thinks, "Great, I'm protected." The pragmatist sees the other side agreeing to anything and thinks, "He's lying to me because he's lying to himself." Someone who promises the impossible on paper has no real intention of delivering when chaos hits, and chaos always hits. The paper accepts the illusion, but human behavior reveals the truth. If you are starting to understand that the real game happens long before the signature, pay attention. You need to understand that the purpose of a contract is not to describe how you're going to split the victory. The true purpose of a contract is to be the exact roadmap for how you're going to behave during the divorce. The Talmud doesn't focus on celebrating the partnership. It focuses on auditing the disaster. When you put a document on the table, your job is not to review the alignment of the words. Your job is to trigger a chemical reaction in the brain of the person holding the pen. You need to pull that person out of optimism and slam them into a state of brutal accountability. The man who has true Gemirut Da'at, genuine intention to close the deal fairly, won't flinch at the ruin clause. He'll discuss it rationally. But the man who is just riding the hype will hesitate. He'll try to change the subject. His eyes will drift, and it is precisely to capture that microfraction of a second, that crack in the mask, that the 3-second rule was created. It's a truth extraction tool. It's not a pause to think. It's a psychological ambush you set at the negotiating table, forcing the other person to show you who they really are before your finances get locked to them. Now that you understand the signature is just theater for the naive, we need to talk about the silent weapon that dismantles that theater. In a business meeting, when the room goes quiet, you panic. You feel the urge to talk, to justify, to crack a joke, to reaffirm how incredible this partnership is going to be. You've been programmed to believe that silence is awkward, but for the minds that forged generational wealth, silence is not a void. Silence is an interrogation room. In the Talmud, there's a deep concept about the weight of unspoken words, closely tied to the idea of shetika. The ancestral wisdom states that the spoken word belongs to whoever hears it, but the withheld word belongs to whoever controls it. When you're inches away from signing a contract, every instinct trained by school and the marketplace tells you to smile and say, "Let's move forward." This is exactly the moment where you break that pattern. This is where you apply the 3-second rule. When the document is in front of you and the pen is in your hand, you do not sign. You pause. You lift your eyes slowly from the paper, and you lock your gaze directly on the person across the table. No smile, no frown. A completely neutral expression, and you hold that unbroken eye contact for exactly 3 seconds. Sounds like nothing, but in a high-pressure environment, 3 seconds of intentional silence feels like an eternity. That silence creates a power vacuum in the room, and human nature, especially the nature of someone who is trying to take advantage of you, despises a vacuum. During those 3 seconds, your mind is not thinking about profit. Your mind is running a cold calculation that the ancient sages called evaluating the hefsed, the ruthless analysis of loss. You ask yourself the one question that determines the survival of your wealth. If this man decides to destroy me tomorrow morning, what does this piece of paper force him to lose? Pay very close attention to how that question is framed. You are not asking what you could lose. You are asking what his punishment is. If the answer is nothing, or just his time, you are looking at a trap, a contract where the ruin is asymmetric, where only you bleed if it goes wrong, is not a partnership. It's a voluntary donation to a predator. And the Talmud is brutally clear on this. You do not enter an agreement where the other party doesn't have enough skin in the game to fear failure as much as you do. While you're running that mental calculation, the real show is happening on the other side of the table. Your 3-second pause is going to force your partner's mask to slip. The amateur, the one riding pure hype with no real intention of bearing the consequences, will break the silence. He'll laugh nervously. He'll ask if everything's okay. He'll try to rush you by saying, "Go ahead and sign. We'll work out the details later." That is the body language of desperation. It is a silent confession that his intention, the Gemirut Da'at we talked about, is not solid. The dangerous man, on the other hand, the corporate predator who buried a lethal clause deep in the middle of the text, will also react. He'll hold your gaze, but impatience will flash behind his eyes. He'll realize you are not the easy prey the system shaped you to be. He'll realize you're not reading the paper. You're reading his soul. If, and only if, after those 3 seconds, your instinct and your risk mathematics confirm that the man across from you has just as much to lose as you do, then the pen touches the paper. Otherwise, you stand up, thank them for the coffee, and walk out of the room. No explanations, no apologies. Old money does not apologize for protecting what's its. Tomorrow morning, the theory ends. You're going to wake up, put on your best clothes, and walk into a meeting that could define the next 5 years of your life. Maybe it's signing a lease on a new commercial space. Maybe it's a partnership agreement with a childhood friend. Maybe it's closing a contract with a client who's promising to double your revenue. The modern setting has changed. Glass tables and air conditioning replaced desert tents. But human nature is exactly the same as it was 3,000 years ago. Predators still smell blood. The difference is that today they wear a suit and smile while they pour you a cup of coffee. When you walk into that meeting, the system's script will try to swallow you whole. They'll be warm and friendly. They'll talk about long-term vision, about how perfectly your synergies align. The contract will be placed on the table softly, almost like a boring formality that just needs to get out of the way so you can celebrate. That is the exact millisecond where you kill the amateur inside of you. You'll pick up the pen. You'll look at the dotted line, and you will do absolutely nothing. You'll apply the safety lock. You'll lift your eyes slowly and drive your gaze right into the face of the person who handed you that paper. No hostility, no arrogance. Just absolute silence for 3 seconds. You'll watch that person's breathing. You'll watch where their eyes run when the validation they expected from you never comes. The money that survives empires understands that desperation is loud, but true intention is silent. If your future business partner starts filling that silence with jokes, with unsolicited justifications, or tries to redirect away from the contract by saying you can adjust the details later, you just found the trap. He couldn't hold 3 seconds of pressure. He doesn't have the emotional foundation to weather a crisis. If he cracks under silence in a comfortable room, he will sell you out for a few bucks the first month the company's cash flow goes negative. On the other hand, if you apply the 3 seconds, and the other side of the table absorbs the weight, if he holds eye contact with that same calm, fully aware that the stakes are serious and that the consequences of failure are heavy for both of you, you have a real partner. He passed the Gemirut Da'at filter. His intention can hold the gravity of the agreement. The system wants you to believe that a contract bulletproofed by attorneys is what protects you. But the most powerful bloodlines on earth know an unchanging truth. A contract never changes a man's character. It only legalizes the intentions he walked in with. A piece of paper doesn't turn a coward into a hero. And it sure as hell doesn't turn a predator into a just man. Protecting your signature is the #1 barrier between you and handing the keys to your kingdom to your enemy. But here's the problem. Nobody has the guts to warn you about. What do you do when you learned this rule too late? What happens when you look around right now, inside your own company, or inside your own life, and realize the predator is already inside? You signed the paper in the past. The door was opened. The enemy is no longer across the negotiating table. He's sitting in the chair right next to yours, splitting the profits, draining your energy, and quietly engineering your downfall. The 3-second rule protects the front door, But there is a far darker and more surgical Talmudic protocol for when the infection is already inside the house. A principle designed to cut toxic relationships and partnerships without losing a single cent of the wealth you built. It's the art of the silent extraction. And we'll be going deep on that in the next video. So make sure you subscribe so you get notified the moment it drops. That knowledge is out there, and it's going to set you free. If you think you've got the stomach to learn how to dismantle an alliance without leaving a financial trace behind, don't forget to subscribe and drop "My victory is certain" in the comments to declare your financial success to the universe. The real game starts there. See you on the other side.